Yeah, there's a seductive quality to a lot of religions.
Oh, yeah.
I find a seductive quality to people that are very confident in what they're saying and this ultimate truth that they're espousing. And I went to the Vatican recently, and one of the things that was really apparent to me was the sheer scale and the vast the size of like St. Peter's. What is it? It's not St. Peter's Cathedral. It's not a cathedral. It's
it is called St. Peter's, isn't it?
The Basilica.
Yeah, the Basilica. Thank you. The Basilica, which was just, to me, the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen as far as like a human creation, the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, other than Chichen Itza, other than the Mayan pyramids. I was just stunned by the amount of work and the hundreds of years of work that had gone into creating that. But when you're there, the overall scale of it is so immense that it makes you feel pure. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel insignificant in the greater picture. And I think that's a big factor with a lot of religions, is to eliminate the power of the individual by making you feel diminished by the sheer scale of what you're seeing and what the hall that you're in.
I'm sure that's correct.
It's intimidating.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing which I would add in, which is, last year, slightly on the back of doing the Scientology program, I was living in the UK and I was trying to get a program going about fundamentalist Islam, or not even fundamentalist, actually beyond, where it's extreme radical Islam, so-called, basically people who support ISIS, of which there are some in the UK, although they're hard to interview because it's actually a crime to glorify terrorism, is what it's called. And so they have to talk very gingerly around the subject. But if you get into a debate about someone who is sincerely committed to ISIS brand of Sunni Islam, right, where they're saying actually, yeah, sex slaves are okay. They'll say like slaves isn't quite the right term, but we approve of that and blah, blah, blah. And then they say, well, by what authority do you challenge what we believe, right? When you start coming at them with some kind of humanistic, secular, liberal sort of view of life, and you try and explain, well, I'm not basing I don't have an authority as such, like I'm not preaching a religion. I'm just saying, it's kind of better to be nice to people. And they say, but based on under what authority? Like you find that you actually don't really have. It's surprisingly difficult when you're thrown back on first principles to make the case for a sort of sensitive secular way of doing things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
One of the appeals of, I think, whether it's Scientology or Islam or Christianity, extreme Christianity, whatever that form that takes, they can say, like, we have all our answers. They're in a book, and God told us. And so who told you? And I'm like, well, no one told me. I'm relying on a 2 millennia old tradition, founded in Greco-Roman times, with various people, interpreters over the years. But actually, I can't really articulate that in 10 words. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's surprisingly hard. So once you're in the prison of a faith-based system, it's very hard to kind of leverage your way out. I didn't do a good job of trying to get them out, basically.
Well, it's very difficult when they say that, like, by what authority? And you realize, well, you don't have any, and they think they do. Yeah. And that's where it gets weird.
You're like, I don't have a book. Like, whatever we call the other way of doing things, And also, you don't want to say, like, well, in Western tradition, you're trying not to, because whether we like it or not, all our beliefs have some sort of geographic and temporal specificity to them. As much as we might want to say that there are golden rules that exist through time and space, I don't think there really are. These are all kind of constructed.
Right, like all of culture.
Yeah, like all truths, all culture. And so you're having to say, well, over the last few hundred years since the Enlightenment, we've found that in general, torture's not a brilliant idea, and capital punishment's not great, and slavery is largely discredited. And they say, well, so this is about the Western Enlightenment, that's your authority. And I don't want to be kind of basing it on that. So I slightly made a hash of it. After I did the interview, my producer said to me, yeah, I think he kind of owned you in that interview. The guy who's like the ISIS defender, he's in prison now. That was why one of the reasons we didn't finish the documentary. Anyway, that's sort of going off on a tangent slightly.
What did he go to prison for?
For allegedly glorifying terrorism.
Did you hear that Twitter yesterday banned 235,000 Twitter handles?
No, really?
For promoting terrorism.
Really?
235,000. That's incredible.
How? I mean, I'd be intrigued to know how they define promoting terrorism.
Yeah, I
is
would
that
as well.
all? Would that all be Islamic? Or
Yes. Well, I would assume, because I am not. So it must be that.
But
yeah.
I wonder if there was a conservative Breitbart blogger who was banned.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah.
That was very sketchy. I don't agree with what he said, but if you really pay attention to what he said, it was very sketchy that they banned him.
I mean, you believe in freedom of speech or you don't, kind of.
Yes. And all he did was he made a post on Breitbart about the Ghostbusters movie, and it was very critical. He basically called it a piece of shit. It was a terrible movie. He said it was this ridiculous feminist film, and that creating this all-female Ghostbusters cast where all the men are buffoons. And
did he not flame the African-American actor?
He flamed everyone. He called them fat and ugly and disgusting. And, you know, what he's saying is essentially like, look, I'm bitchy. He's bitchy all the time. He's a very flamboyantly gay guy. He's been in this podcast a couple times. He's hilarious. I find him funny.
I follow him on Twitter. You
used to.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Well, they banned him. But here's what's interesting. He didn't do anything bad on Twitter. When you look at what he said on Twitter, it was like nothing. You know, it was like nothing more than like, she had said, Leslie Jones had said a bunch of things about him or what other people had said about her. And she wrote something down that was just poor grammar, and he wrote, "My word, barely literate. You know, such a shame. Schools in America. You know, that's essentially what he wrote, and then he was banned. I mean, that is really mild stuff. I mean, I think there's a problem. First of all, that he's conservative, and they don't like that. And that he does attack feminists and social justice warriors and progressives and the left, and he goes after them. And that's essentially the whole base of Twitter. Yeah. Twitter has this, what do they call it again? What is their council? They have some strange, it's very Orwellian. It's like safety and trust and safety council where things...
A watchdog group within Twitter that keeps tabs on it?
Well, who decides what is and is not harassment, and it's sort of like placating people who are recreationally outraged by other people's opinions.
The trouble is it's a public space that is basically also a corporate entity, right? So in essence, they can do whatever they want legally, right?
Yeah, but it's very ideologically based. It's very left-wing. It's very weird in a lot of ways, which I am in many ways left-wing. So when I read what they're saying, I agree in some ways, but outside of actual real harassment, I just don't think that you should be able to just ban someone because they, call someone a bitch or call someone ugly. It doesn't seem to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, I feel as though we're in a weird place. We're off on a tangent slightly, but it was around the time of Charlie Hebdo. Which was everyone was marching for the right to be offensive, right? And around the same time, trolling became a buzzword, and it was the idea that we should stop trolling. And there's a certain disconnect we're living through as a culture to do with wanting to defend the right to be offensive, but also come down hard on trolling. And actually, at a certain point, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah. Well, there was also a lot of people that were defending what had happened in Charlie Hebdo by saying that those cartoons were really racist. They were going so far pro-Islamic to sort of... I'm
going to say what I heard was, and because I understood this, was some people saying, absolutely, it's a crime, it's hideous, and people have the right to be, to be offensive, but I'm not going to valorize the message or even hold these people up as free speech martyrs any more than I would do if Tom Metzger or a neo-Nazi was killed. He does not thereby become a hero. He becomes a victim of a lynch mob, of a murderous campaign. But I'm not thereby a supporter of his output. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, there's a mistake here. I have to text that to Tom Papa, who thinks he's supposed to be here right now. Apparently he's outside. He's supposed to be here next Monday. Whoops, Tom. Yeah, I think...
So Penn, for example, I think it was Penn, the American
magician.
No, Writers Union. It's a guild of writers that supports the rights of writers around the world in America. And they said, well, we don't want to give an award. So there was a divide among panel. Should we give an award to Charlie Hebdo? By giving them an award, are you thereby saying we support you for saying that Muhammad was a piece of shit or whatever they were saying? Or are you, in other words, do you get an award for being killed? There's a little bit of a conflict there.
Yes.
In other words, so I'm sympathetic to people who feel that absolutely it was a crime, it was hideous, Islamo-fascists killed Charlie Hebdo, but that does not thereby make Charlie Hebdo's message a laudable or creditable one.
Yes, that's a really good point, because what were they doing and what was the point of what they were doing?
Yeah.
Were they just trying to be funny? Was it parody? I don't know if it was funny, because I don't speak French and I haven't really paid any attention to the translations. Just to me,
some of it seemed funny, some of it didn't seem that funny. But if Julius Streicher, right, I don't want to compare them directly with this, but an offensive propagandist for the Nazis, just to take an example. I shouldn't even go down this road, because once you bring the Nazis in, it just clouds everything.
Yeah, as soon as you say Hitler.
Yeah, it's a kind of thought blocking. It blocks all thought.
He's worse than Hitler, this Trump.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the real bottom line is people were killed for cartoons. There's no way to defend that, right?
Correct.
I think everyone agrees with that.
We agree with that.
But does that make the cartoons good? It certainly doesn't.
No.
They could be shit cartoons and people were killed for shit cartoons. It's wrong to kill people for shit cartoons. But the cartoons are still shit.
Even L. Ron Hubbard would agree with that.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know.